Hello everyone, Michael Bretti here from Bretti Musical Instruments. I've got another really exciting custom ocarina set build unveiling. So without further ado, I'd like to give a first look and listen at batch number 13 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Bretti Musical Instruments. So over the course of this video, like all my other videos, I'm going to be diving into the background of this build, a little bit of the history and the development, taking a look at the really exquisite woods for this build. In particular, I've got some really stunning woods for this custom build, and then give a sound sample of each ocarina and then a full song demo at the end. So for those of you who kind of follow along with these videos, you might have seen that in my prior video earlier this month, I unveiled my first F4 tenor set. So that was kind of bridging the gap between the tenor E4 and the alto G4 ocarinas. And I had mentioned in that video that that set was the original first F4 development set that was done prior to this particular build for this customer. So as a little bit of a background, this customer reached out to me earlier this year, and they were really interested in my wooden ocarinas. They saw some videos. They really liked the sound and look, and I kind of wanted to learn more. So we started talking a whole bunch back and forth, and I sent them a bunch of sound samples and dimensions and other info. And while they really liked the tone of the G4, they said that if possible, they really wanted a key of F4 because that's their favorite key and that's something that they really like to play. At the time, since this was kind of earlier in the year, I didn't have an F4 yet. I had the tenor E4 that I just launched and then the alto G4. But based on the size and kind of how things scaled, I told them, you know what, while I don't have an F4 just yet, looking at the size and the scaling, I'm pretty confident that I can bridge the gap between the two, kind of make an in-between size, and work that out for this build. And what I will do is I will build another F4 set prior to this, make sure that I know what I'm talking about, I get all the bugs worked out, all the details worked out for the particular tuning and voicing, and once that's set, I'll start cutting wood for your build. So that's kind of how things evolved for this this set. So this development was actually a little bit longer than usual because I had to make a completely new set of ocarinas before even cutting wood into this, or cutting into the wood for this build. And especially because of the woods that were used for this build were very figured. I didn't want to take any risks in ruining the amazing wood selection that was set aside for this build. So kind of diving right into the build directly now, this build consists of two ocarinas, again in that tenor F4 range. This build is made up of 3 different woods, and I'll start jumping right in with the first ocarina of this build. So this is ocarina serial number 35, and the second one is 36. So when the customer reached out to me about the initial build and we started talking about custom options, and I asked them, if you could have any woods in the world for your build, what would it be? What would your kind of ideal build be? And a lot of times the process is a lot of back and forth, going over a whole bunch of different wood options and selections and other things. But for this particular build, the customer knew exactly what they wanted. They knew pretty quickly and wanted to know, hey, I love koa. Could I get a koa top? And I told them, absolutely. I've worked with koa before. It's a beautiful wood and would certainly make a really fabulous top for an ocarina. And asking them, with the koa top, is there any particular wood you'd want to pair it with for the bottom? And they came back and they said, could we do walnut? And immediately when they mentioned that they wanted that koa walnut combination, I could immediately visualize that instrument in my mind and what it would look like. I've worked with walnut for several builds now. I've released 4 other ocarinas with some really beautiful figured walnut. I have a bunch more figured walnut, so I kind of knew what I'd be dealing with that. I've worked with koa before for custom shun build, which was really beautiful, and I knew that pairing those two woods together, not only with the colors and the palette, but also sonically, kind of that warm, rich timbre and mellowness of both of those woods working together, I knew immediately would be a phenomenal combination. So I told them, absolutely, let's do this. This is going to be a really, really fantastic build. So jumping right in, we kind of going into the first wood of this. Again, the body wood kind of really sets the tone and the theme for the rest of the ocarina. So for the body, we ended up going with this absolutely just insane fiddleback marble cake claro walnut. It's a mouthful to say, but this wood is just utterly, utterly stunning. I said I've used walnut before for several builds in the past, and I've used walnut for other instruments as well. And this has got to be, for an ocarina so far, this is the nicest walnut that I've used yet. This is absolutely, just absolutely insanely exquisite walnut. Claro walnut is becoming a favorite of mine. It has really, really amazingly beautiful character, really amazingly beautiful color and figure. There's a lot of suppliers of it, so there's a lot of options. And it's a really amazing domestic hardwood, so it really showcases, kind of what local sustainable woods here in the U.S. can really do in terms of instrument making. So for the fiddleback part, you can see that there's just this really beautiful fiddleback, just this rippling, intense rippling fiddleback, iridescent curl that just wraps around the instrument. You can see it on the sides, on the back. It's absolutely just amazingly iridescent. The marble cake comes from this really beautiful and unique kind of banding that goes across the instrument vertically. So this veining and this kind of banding and palette of colors gives it almost that feel of a layered marble cake. So that's why it's called marble cake walnut. And there's a few different types. I've seen marble cake English walnut, which is really beautiful. That actually looks like almost like a yellowish brown sponge cake with chocolate. The marble cake claro walnut, I think, is also really beautiful because it has these amazing hues of different lights and dark browns, a bit of kind of this orangish reddish brown tint to it, and just the veining that you can see in that figure is just absolutely stunning. It's just an amazing wood. And for this particular set of wood, typically when I go to a customer, I present a whole bunch of different options for all the woods so they can select their favorite. And browsing through all of the options for the walnut body, I stumbled across this piece from one of my suppliers, and it just blew everything else away that was available. And I went to the customer, I told them, typically I give a range of options for you to select from. However, I'd like you to trust me on this one. This walnut is really stunning. It's the best option that I've seen from my suppliers that's available now, and it would make just an unbelievable ocarina. So I specifically selected this fiddleback marble cake claro walnut. Out of all the options I was looking at over a dozen options. This just took the cake. No pun intended. Just the figure on this, the color, the black veining, with the iridescent fiddleback figure is just unbelievable. Next, we kind of moved to the top wood, which was the first wood selection that the customer wanted, which was the koa top. And this really is a wow factor, I think, of the ocarina when you first see it. It is really some stunning iridescent koa. You can see just the insane iridescence in that, the movement, the fire in the grain, just the intense curl that pairs beautifully with kind of the iridescent curl of the walnut. So this koa is just this incredibly deep, rich, iridescent orange. And when we were going through the koa selection, I found a whole bunch of different koa options, different grades, different price ranges, different figure, different color. I presented probably about over a dozen different koa boards to select from, and the customer ended up picking this really beautiful deep orange board. And how it's come together, I'm really glad they picked that one. That was one of my top, I'd say top two boards from the selection that I had looked at personally. And it's just stunning. And koa, even unfigured kind of plain koa, still has this really nice iridescence to it. And I'm actually working on another Tenor E4 set of koa that has a more plain koa body, but still, even polished up, you get this beautiful light iridescence in the grain. So koa is just this absolutely incredible wood that has just this, that can have just ridiculous figure to it. Just this insane, fiery, striping, rippling, rich orange to it. And I think it pairs absolutely fantastically. You can kind of see that it pairs really nicely with that iridescent brown. So it's just an absolutely phenomenal combination. This is the nicest koa that I've worked with for an instrument build. This is the nicest walnut that I've worked with for ocarina build. So it is just really a truly stunning combination. This set of ocarinas, for me, just feels like just like a polished gemstone. Just the way that the iridescence is in real life, and just seeing it and holding it in person, and the color palette and rippling chatoyance of the woods is just phenomenal. Finally, we get to the mouthpiece. So for the mouthpiece, there's always the standard option of the aromatic cedar, and then the upgrade option for the figured old growth curly redwood. And I had told the customer up front, after the other woods were selected, it's going to be extra, but because the woods for this build are so insanely beautiful, I would have to almost insist that you go with a redwood mouthpiece, just because the color palette of the darker redwood ties together kind of with the other woods really nicely. And because it has iridescence and curl in the grain, I think that pairs also really nicely with the iridescence of these woods. So customers said they would trust my artistic vision, or entrust my artistic vision, and go for the redwood. So you can never go wrong with redwood on an ocarina build. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with aromatic cedar. From a functional standpoint, it's perfectly, it works beautifully. It's actually harder than the redwood, and it has really amazing moisture properties. But the redwood, I think, aesthetically takes it up a notch, especially with the curly old growth redwood that I stock. And I have a few different shades of the redwood. I decided to pair a kind of darker curly redwood for this build, so you can see, kind of holding it back, you can see the iridescence in the mouthpiece and the iridescence in the body, just really kind of rippling together. So just overall an amazing combination. And For this build, I would say there's a lot of extra effort in the koa. This wasn't an ideal board from the perspective of the tooling that I have. I don't necessarily have all the tooling I want for precisely thicknessing certain wood, so I had to do a lot of resawing and hand thicknessing myself to get it down to the thickness that I needed. So I ended up with 4 koa tops, and I selected the 2 from that I really liked to make these 2 ocarinas. So there's more effort involved in this particular top than typical. I typically like to get 1/4 inch stock for the tops, but occasionally for very special stuff, I will resaw and re-thickness with the tools and stuff that I have available, given the size. For certain stuff, especially as I start getting into larger basses and contrabasses, that's going to be a little bit more tricky. But for the smaller stuff like this, I think it's definitely manageable. So giving kind of a sound sample now of this ocarina, you heard kind of the other one being played in the intro theme, but I'll play up and down the full scale of this ocarina so you can get kind of an idea of what it sounds like across the entire range. So again, these are 11-hole ocarinas with a sub-hole and a split hole, and gives you that extended 19-note range for the inline. So this is what this scale sounds like for number 35. So in terms of tone and response, this has so many properties that I try to capture in an ocarina. It has, the right back pressure for me, the right kind of breath curve, beautiful sweet tone with a tiny bit of extra texture. Again, the inline style gives a little bit of texture while balancing it with kind of the teardrop shape that's seen in transverse ocarinas typically. That combination kind of gives it a little bit of a unique texture and tonal resonance that is less reedy than the square holes that you typically see for these, and less pure than the transverse style Asian style ocarinas. So this set, I think, in terms of voicing, this has really beautiful, warm, sweet, rich tone across the range. It's not too subdued at the bottom ends. The high end is crystal clear with just beautiful sweetness to it. Has a really nice sweet ringing resonance on some of the notes going up the scale. So absolutely phenomenal ocarina that I think the voicing really matches the look of the ocarina. And it's always hard to capture a lot of the nuances of the tone over the video, but in person, it's definitely something to experience. So really, overall, I think from a voicing perspective and a build perspective, these came together just absolutely phenomenally. Moving on to the second ocarina of this batch, this is number 36. So again, going right into it, we have just this really intensely beautiful figured fiddleback figure in the walnut. You have the beautiful layering of the marble cake claro walnut, just absolutely stunning. You can see how that just wraps around the body and just ripples. It's just a rippling, beautiful iridescence in color. Like the other one, it has this kind of beautiful black veining on the side, and I designed these two that they have kind of that matching black figure on the same side. So for these ocarinas, when you're holding it, that black veining is on the left side, and it was intentionally done that way for this matching set for both ocarinas, while having that banding going horizontally for the fiddleback and then that vertical marble cake layering for the body. So again, just absolutely just amazing, amazing wood, and it's just a joy to look at. And kind of comparing the two, because there are a little bit different nuances between the woods. So you can see here they have really similar layering. I think this one has a little bit, number 35 has a little bit more wavy type layering to it with a little bit wider iridescent bands. This one has a little bit more straight marble cake layering with a little bit more tight iridescent fiddleback bands. So again, cut from the same exact board. I believe the board was probably layered like this, or one of the ways it was layered together. So all cut from the same board, but still just a little bit different figure. Both visually stunning. Both have the same features, but just a little bit of variation. Just really, really beautiful figure in that. And then looking at the koa for the top, again, we have just this really intense iridescent fiery curl of this beautiful deep orange koa. For this particular ocarina, koa is a little bit more open grain, so it does have more, pores to it. And I don't do pore filling for my ocarinas for a number of reasons. So for this one, the way that the board kind of worked was that there's a little bit of this kind of dark patch on the side with the grain, and there's a lot of pores for whatever reason in the wood along this side. So it looks like it's a little bit rougher. It's a tiny bit more textured. You can see the ocarina is just polished to this really high gloss polish, but this side has a little bit more texture to it from that open grain structure. So number 35 is a little bit more clear. So I would say in terms of comparing the tops, both of them have just really intense figure to it. You can see just moving in the light that they're just absolutely beautiful, with number 36 being just a little bit textured on the side with that kind of darker bands there. Again, one more look at number 35 and number 36, just taking a look at the back, the layering and the iridescence, and then the front, the iridescence, both equally insanely beautiful. I would say the curl on the koa is maybe a little bit more tight on number 36, and but equally the same level of iridescence to it. Again, this was just a pretty wild build to work with. And finally, we have the figured redwood mouthpiece that ties together the entire aesthetic of this ocarina. So now to give kind of a sound sample, I'll go up and down the scale for this ocarina. So this is what number 36 sounds like across the full range. So in terms of response, this is really, really similar to number 35. I would say this is one of those ocarina batches that aesthetically are insanely well matched, and tonally are insanely well matched too. This is a very, very well matched batch. Some batches can have more variations in the wood, a little bit more variations in the voicing. Still always beautiful and well voiced, well tuned. But sometimes there's some variation. Sometimes it's a little bit more reserved at the top end and more sweet at the high end. Other times maybe it's a little more textured in one part of the scale versus the other. This set is really well balanced across the entire range for both ocarinas. I really can't tell that much of a difference between the two. There's maybe a really, really slight difference, but it's so minimal that it's hard to really say. So I would say either of these ocarinas are phenomenal, just from a look wise, from a tonal standpoint. They respond and play almost identically. So while I always aim to make really highly matched ocarinas, sometimes, like I mentioned in the prior batch, you can't force an ocarina to play how it's not meant to be. These two ended up being, almost identically matched. I will also say that from the very early stages of the build, after getting the woods in and starting to think about the design, I told the customer that I am definitely going to be keeping one of these ocarinas for myself in my personal collection. I'm going to just take whichever one you don't select, just because I love these woods. I love the walnut. I love the koa, the redwood. This combination is amazing. I wouldn't have even necessarily thought to do this myself. So again, getting inspiration from working with customers and doing custom builds like this. And this is an ocarina that it's one of those ones that the woods are just so amazing. The voicing is just really, really nice that I have to have it for my own collection. So whichever one of the two that my customer ends up choosing, I will be keeping the other one. And I would say that I would be absolutely happy with either one. Both of them are phenomenal, and I am excited not only to send this out to the customer who's been waiting quite a while for this. I think this was upwards of getting there, probably 5, almost 6 month wait for this particular build, including the month-long hiatus I had over the summer. So not only I'm sure the customer is excited to get a hold of one of these, but I'm also excited to officially add it to my collection, which now on Ocarina number 39 officially, I only will now have, after this set, 3 ocarinas for myself in my own collection. So that kind of wraps up the overview of this ocarina set. And for those of you who kind of follow along with this effort and kind of enjoy these ocarinas, I do these videos. They are admittedly long. I'm talking 30 minutes, maybe longer, about the woods and everything, kind of just rambling on. I know sometimes people have commented that I just keep going on, and I talk excessively, and I do talk a lot. But for these ocarinas, they're long builds. It's 2.5, 3 months usually, typically now for a build. There's a lot to discuss. Every ocarina has its own unique story, its own unique features and character to it. So there's a lot that can be said about these ocarinas. And these videos, especially for custom builds like this, are really primarily for the customer and part of what I offer as the experience in when you acquire an ocarina from Bretti Musical Instruments. So like I've mentioned in other videos, a lot of the process is also just getting to know my customers at a more personal level. And for this particular build, I've exchanged now over 40 emails back and forth with the customer, just talking about the various wood selections and giving updates and answering all the questions they had. They had a lot of questions about dimensions and different options and sizing and characteristics, and sending sound samples and kind of build progress and stuff. So I've said this before, my ocarinas are very expensive. They're very expensive for ocarinas, and even for wood ocarinas, I would say they're kind of on the more expensive range. And part of that is because of the wood selection. I don't think there's any maker in the world that can match the level of flexibility and variety of woods that I have to offer. But also, what you're getting is just this also attention to detail and really personalized experience for these types of builds. So I give full complete pictures of the builds. I give updates through the thing. We're chatting about other things in general, like other instruments or other things about ocarinas and stuff. Getting to know the customer, and also doing a video like this. These videos, they're long. I talk a lot. I'm probably dragging this one out a little bit too much too. But it gives the customer, especially ones that get into the custom builds like this, a really detailed overview of every aspect of the ocarina, the tonal qualities, the response, a look at the woods, kind of a story behind what goes into them. So that also goes into what's offered with these ocarinas, and kind of what makes my approach quite unique, I would say, in the ocarina world, and even for instrument making in general. I think there's very few makers out there that actually do this level of overview for every single instrument they build. And part of that is, I do these in really low batch quantities, so I can focus a lot more on the individual character of each instrument. So it's a bit of a unique approach that lends itself interestingly to ocarinas. And I think ocarinas like these, like sets like this in general, I think I'd like to emphasize that historically, inlines have always been seen as kind of a cheaper, lower quality, lower range type of ocarina. They never have been taken as seriously or developed nearly to the level of transverse ocarinas. For wooden ocarinas, they're always lower cost, really boxy, kind of simple shape, and the range is really limited. And my design philosophy is very different. I wanted really high-end ocarinas that have the full range and capability of a transverse, same fingering, same note range, beautiful response and tone, beautiful finishes and woods, and adding this extra layer of what goes into the development, like these review videos and other aspects of the inline, and really trying to elevate the art of inline ocarinas that I don't think has been done yet. And I think there's a lot. I've said this before. The inline has tremendous potential to be considered a serious, professional quality woodwind, and that's what I try to exemplify with works like this. So enough of that ramble. This kind of wraps up this whole segment of looking at these two ocarinas. Now, to put things into a musical context, I'm going to be performing a full song so you can kind of hear what it sounds like in a song demo. So for this particular song, I'm going to be doing a simple rendition of Kakariko Village from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So please enjoy this rendition of Kakariko Village. So with that, this wraps up this batch unveiling video. This is, again, batch 13, consisting of 2 custom tenor E4 or tenor F4 ocarinas made from just an amazing selection of fiddleback, marble cake, claro walnut, figured koa, and curly old growth redwood. I want to thank you again for sticking through this video if you have. And for my customer, I hope this video is informative and helping you make the tough decision between these 2 ocarinas. Again, I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but I wish you the best of luck in picking the ocarina that really resonates the most with you in terms of both look and tone. And for the ocarina that's not selected, I'm going to be very excited myself in bringing it into my own personal collection. So for those of you who enjoy these updates and want to see more, there's constant updates and info on the Bretti Musical Instruments Instagram page, where I have looks at new woods coming in, new builds, new sizes, new things in the works. There's updates and announcements and build pictures also on the Bretti Musical Instruments Facebook page, and I also post on a couple of the active Ocarina Facebook groups. And then here on the YouTube channel, where I do batch unveilings and sound samples for each of the instruments that I make. So I've got a lot of ocarinas in production, a whole bunch of sizes. I've been hinting at new bass ocarinas and eventually contrabass ocarinas. Bass ocarinas are now already in production, so you'll be seeing those very soon. Lots more tenor ocarinas, lots more alto ocarinas, so a whole range of new woods, new custom builds, and everything under the sun. So with that, I want to thank you again, and I'll see you next time.